So, dear friends, colleagues, all dedicated custodians of this Mother Earth planet, a very warm welcome and good morning to this session on the environmental rule of law. We are here today for a special session on the subject that sits, I think, at a dynamic, intersection of justice, sustainability, and a survival. That is the environmental rule of law. So, before we start, what environmental rule of law, I'll just need a clear, understanding. Do you have all idea what the rule of law principle is all about? I'll give you a hint. Mr. A.V. Dicey has, explained the concept of rule of law in very, beautiful way, dividing all this, the entire principle into the three different pillars. So, if anyone can answer what is rule of law.
My understanding is, madam, in simple language, plain language, law is common to everyone, and we have to follow that law as per rules and regulations.
Okay.
Law prevails all times. There will be a rule to follow the law.
Everyone has to follow the
So
rule,
everyone has to follow the rule also.
and law prevails amongst, like, above all the post that is there of the state, right?
Yes.
So he's correct. I'll give you a brief understanding of what the rule of law is. It based on the three principle which Avid Ic has beautifully explained. So what he says, the entire rule of law concept is divided into the three pillars, or based on the three pillars rather. One, it says that equality before law. Equality before law means you may be a layman, like who we are, and you may be a king, queen, you may be head of any sovereign state, or anyone having any powerful post or office to hold. You will be treated equally in the eyes of law, and law applies is in an equal stage irrespective of any this thing. And that is the first principle of rule of law, that is the equality before law. The second principle, it says, is a supremacy of law. Again, based on this thing, you may be a king or you may be a queen of any monarchy, or you may be a prime minister, or you may be a president, you may be any government official or anyone. But law is supreme than every other post that is there. So this principle is establishing a supremacy over all the post. हमारे यहाँ पे वो एक फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत चलता है कि चाचा विधायक है तो वो टिंटेड ग्लास कार में चल जाते हैं, या फिर वी जस्ट टेक ऑल दैट privileges in case a chacha is vidhayak. But ultimately, the in ideal situation, rule of law says that a law is equal. A law needs to be applied on an equal base to everyone, and there has to be a supremacy of law. And the last principle which this rule of law says is predominance of the legal spirit. That means that unless and until the judiciary apply all the written laws in its correct way, unless and until the judiciary interpret the law its in correct way, all the written laws have no meaning. So everywhere in imparting the justice, the law needs to be prevalent, and there has to be dominance of the legal spirit, that to the ultimate goals is to impart the justice on the base of the law, irrespective of you are from which caste, greed, sex, no discrimination on that behalf. So that is rule of law. And when we say environmental rule of law, it is the same fundamentals which this environmental rule of law is based upon. Again, it is saying that all the environmental laws, I don't know what thousand numbers of law globally we have on the different aspects of the law, may it be for the climate change, may it be for the reversing the nature, that is the nature positive concept, may it be the concept, the new concept or new phenomena like environmental personhood, or may it be the basic about, commonly discussed topic, that is global warming, or any sort of that. There are thousand number of laws, which maybe some which are into the existence on the international sphere, somewhere in the municipal laws of the countries, or any sort of that. Okay, so we have laws for if somebody is cutting the tree without the permission. You have laws In the municipal laws, you have tree officers for that matter, and other this thing. And to the level of submitting the NDC report to the climate actions department, or this UNFCCC's secretariat. So all sort of that has the laws, okay. But what the environmental rule of law says, if you are the member or a signatory to of any international treaty or international convention or any sort of that, the all those laws would be equally applicable on you. And when we say environmental laws, we are not only including the laws of climate change and other this thing, but we are including the laws like biodiversity laws, marine laws, the airspace laws, and most of all sort of that, okay. So, and then there is this bifurcation, like a developed country, underdeveloped country, or developing country. And then there is P5 countries at United Nations and other these things. Is there a differentiation between the economical phenomena and other this thing? Then there we have the regional arrangements like European Union and other this thing. So, the rule of law says you may be a developed country, you may be underdeveloped country, you may be a P5 country, you may be anything. But if you are a signatory to this environmental concept, I mean, environmental, any treaty or instrument, the laws would be equally applicable on you. If you have, the state has been given a task to perform a certain, agendas under the motions of this thing, the state needs to perform it exactly, applying those, jurisprudential aspect, or the maxim like pacta sunt servanda, that whatever you have agreed upon the global level, you have to apply, follow it, or you need to, get all these things done in its good faith, this thing. So basically it is like that. Apart from that, the environmental rule of law, which is indeed a global or international concept, now has been adopted in many countries. Municipal law, it's also, putting a task over the judiciaries of their local, I mean their country, to uphold those things like supremacy, equality, and predominance of legal spirit. So this is what I think is the base of the entire topic is all about. So for the next hour, I'll invite you to step out all that legislative halls and courtrooms or whatsoever you have discussed, and join me in exploring how our legal system has evolved to address the greatest extensions, challenges rather of, our time. And we are not just looking at the laws, we are looking at how we transform our deepest moral responsibility rather into a concrete, enforceable, and legal actions. And I mean, before we open any statute or any books of law, any direct or any sort of that, we must look at the spiritual foundation of that. I mean, what the ancient text is talking about for this concept. And I have, I've quoted Lord Krishna when narrating this Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7. He says, I mean, he's telling us that the elements of physical world around us, the soil, the water, the air, are not mere resources. They are a divine manifestation. This fundamentally shift our duty. If the environment, that is the Prakriti, is divine, the environmental degradation is not an external damage, it is a fundamentally self-harming the task. This spiritual principle provides essential, deep-rooted moral foundation for a legal framework that we called as environmental rule of law. If a duty tells what we must do, the global community has to establish how. Okay, so when we say something task needs to be performed, there has to have a guideline for that, that how the particular task needs to be performed. And that is what the global text about the environmental rule of law, the first global risk index, which came in 2019 by the United Nations Environmental Program, talks about. So, and it is not like we just have started talking about environmental law in 2019. It was long back in the 1972. The modern environmental, rule of law born like from growing international consequences. That environmental destruction was not just a local announce, but it is in a global security rather, or a global risk at the global security. And the the pivotal moment for this was the United Nations Conference on the Environment and Development, that commonly we know this as UNCED, that is UN said, that is the Rio Earth Summit, which was held in the June 1992. Now, just think that this was the largest United Nations conference, my dear friends, which have ever organized. You don't believe that this has attracted 103 states. The heads of the state were present that meeting or a conference or in a gathering where 30,000 over participants have participated in that. The sheer size of this gathering marked what one official called a loss of innocence. No government could henceforth plead the ignorance to the planetary challenges. You cannot ignore that. I don't know. This is ever prevailing or ever was there. The conference established a social, economical, and environmental factors are interdependent. This interdependence gave a birth to the foundational concept of this sustainable development, my dear friends, that is meeting a present need without compromising the needs for the future generation, my dear friends. This is where the environmental rule of law steps in. This is the legal framework that guarantees the integration and the balance between those. Without the environmental rule of law, the environmental governance becomes arbitrary, my dear friends. It becomes subjective and it becomes unpredictable. Divine, driven by short-term political and economical whims, and it would find difficulty for the long-term sustainability if we adopt the concept of sustainable development without the concept of environmental rule of law. The concept emerged before, because the legal system of the world, even though we were having the United Nations Conference on Human Environment of 1972, and like which we commonly known as Stockholm Declaration, the global body of environmental laws has experienced an extraordinary 38-fold increase in the environmental legislation, and that where we built a fortress of these laws. Now the question for you all is, why then were a global crisis from climate change to the species loss accelerate? When we were having so much of laws, when the laws have increased as per the reports, like 38 folds increased in the environmental laws, then why we still struggle? Why the still the judiciary has to play an active role in the MK Ranjit Singh's case, or why still we are struggling with those global crises? Anyone would like to answer, or I'll just give you a 30 seconds if anyone would like to share anything on this. It's a common this thing, हम इंडिया में ऐसे बहुत बार बोलते हैं कि इंडिया में तो कोई लॉ का वो ही नहीं है, everybody is just finding the loopholes and doing their best. Just finding the loopholes and going great with manipulating the aspects of the law like that. And we sometimes say, अमेरिका में के आमा तो कितना सारा सारा कितने अच्छे अच्छे लॉज हैं, हमारे यहाँ पे तो इतने अच्छे लॉज ही नहीं हैं. I think we are failing in passing this statement, my dear friends. I think we do have laws, of wonderful drafted laws. हम लोग इतना प्राउडली बोलते हैं ना कि हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वेल रिटन है, पूरी लार्जेस्ट डेमोक्रेसी में हम रहते हैं, एंड वी हैव लार्जेस्ट रिटन डॉक्यूमेंट, द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. It is indeed, my dear friends. We do have well drafted, well written laws, even at the international forum. But where we lack in the system is into the implementation. The global assessment has found that despite of glorification of all these laws and other this thing, the weak enforcement was the global trend which is there, and it is not the only case in India. It is, I think, universal challenge, and the single greatest challenge to mitigate all this environmental threat is establishing the individual's responsibility over the task. Like when we say environmental rule of law and other this thing, along with those government duties, we need to give an importance to this self discipline for this matter. self-counting the carbon footprints, or put keeping yourself well vigilant about all this thing. I think that is also a threat to the all this task, and the challenge was no longer making the laws. It is all about ensuring the effective compliance and the implementation task. That is the genesis, I believe, of the environmental rule of law concept is. The implementation failure forced a massive diplomatic, response, my dear friends. The movement environmental rule of law achieved its global identity was, through the United Nations Conference of Environmental and Development, that is Rio Summit, which was held in the Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in I think in the month of June 1992. The sheer scale alone mandate the global recognition of all this thing, and it was the largest conference, as we have discussed, and this massive efforts have forced a global political and diplomatic acknowledgement of this crisis. The world recognized these environmental challenges had reached the level of global security risk and needs to have a blueprint, which keep going, and which gives us yes, somebody has, the Shri is saying that the global crisis like pandemics and conflict overwhelmed judicial system with backlogs and new legal challenges. I think she is answering for that question, that why we are lacking though we have so much of laws. I indeed agree that could be one more aspect, that the filing of these laws, and not so the what you called it as fast trials, or the backlogs of the courts, cases is also one of this thing. But somewhere the case filed into the court because the proper implementation of law is not there, Shri. So I think that is the base of all the problems that further is there. This is what I believe. But thank you for answering. Let's just understand what the environmental rule of laws, the goal of this concept was. So the without environmental rule of law and the enforcement of the legal rights, environmental governance could, as I said, could lead the arbitrariness, that leads to the discretionary, subjective, and unpredictable powers of government authorities. And the core purpose is to prevent this arbitrariness of government authorities and other this thing. It demands making the rights to the clean and decent environmental fundamentals to the human existence efficacious and expeditious across the globe. This identity of global legal standards for non-arbitrary, the predictable environmental governance is what empowered the subsequent judicial revolution. We now can see in India, maybe in the M.K. Ranjit Singh case, or upholding in the various cases through the judicial interpretation or the activism, like keeping the environmental the clean and safe environment as a part of the fundamental right, and keeping it as at a as a part of Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. So somewhere what we now can see the revolution in India. Not only to this, India took a global consequences, global obligations rather, from maybe the Rio Summit, or maybe from the other international, all this thing. Maybe IUCN's declaration, which came in 2016 on the environmental rule of law, or maybe the UNFCCC's target of reducing the climate's this thing for 1.5 degree temperature of the world. So all sort of that, we have integrated it aggressively into our own legal system through the judicial interpretation. Okay, the most legal shift that came and occurred in the Indian Constitution's Article 21, which guarantees the fundamental rights to life and personal liberty. The judiciary has, my dear friends, exclusively interpreted this article to mean that the right to life implicitly includes the right to clean and healthy environment. Can may it be the Supreme Court's case of MC Mehta versus Union of India of 1986 that is there, or may it be T.N. Godavaran's petition, may it be Samir Mehta's case, or may it be any sort of that, maybe this Valor Citizens case or any sort of that. These interpretations have transformed the environmental protection from a discretionary policy goal into a non-negotiable, judicially enforceable constitutional requirements. And this constitutional architecture is supported, this I mean the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution is supported by Article 48A, which is establishing a state duty to protect the environment, and along with Article 51AG of the Indian Constitution, which is putting in the fundamental duties over the citizens of the country for the protection of the environment and Mother Earth, and talking about all the living creatures into the environment. The principles like, the absolute liability, where MC Mehta versus Union of India's case for the oleum case, leakage case, the court have developed the doctrine of this absolute liability in the oleum gas leakage case of 1986, where industries involved into the hazardous activities must pay a compensation for the environmental damages unconditionally without claiming any defense like a lack of negligence. And this has imposed the highest possible standards of responsibility and cemented the polluters pay principle. The polluters must bear the cost of compensating the victims, and critically for the full cost of environmental restoration and all sort of this. My dear friends, this is the case of 1986, where the industry was put into the liability for to pay if they have followed the environment. This is not only recently, I think. Recently, not so recent, like 2 years back or something like that, the Gujarat High Court has taken a suo moto cognizance for one of the matter where, so far what we have seen is putting the industry liable for this polluters pay principle, or making them into the obligation to pay the compensation or to pay a damages for that matter. But this last 2 years back or something like that, the Gujarat High Court's this thing suo moto cognizance was about where the court has kept these what you call it as the obligation on the residential societies. So we have a Sabarmati river flowing from in Ahmedabad, and so it was found that those societies which are having or built near to those river banks, um, there was the report was showing that because of their actions, maybe the draining system, or maybe what the domestic waste or sort of kind what they were draining it out to the river, because of their actions, the Sabarmati river was getting polluted, and where the Gujarat High Court have took the suo moto cognizance for that matter, and held the liability for that polluters pay under the polluters pay principle, and say that the residential society is equally responsible how the industries are responsible for damaging the environment. And if further, if any residential society is found doing any such activities which is polluting the river, their electricity connections, their drainage connections would be disconnected for some time, and the chairman or a secretary of the society would held responsible for that matter, and the society has to pay a compensation for that matter. So my dear friends, when we talk about the absolute liability, when we talk about and not only to this thing, for that case and other this thing, the court also have took the jibe on this state pollution control board while of not taking any action for that matter. So here, where a court is establishing and keeping that the third principle of the environmental rule of law, that is a predominance of the legal spirit, where whatever written in the laws, the judiciary is actively applying the laws into the implementation. And not only to this thing, it is also directing the state authorities to perform a certain task. There is a case of, I think, of 2016, a case of Samir Mehta and the Delta company, I believe, please just cross check with this thing. It is about a oil spill case where lots of oil was spilled into the I think into this baseline of the, I mean, Mumbai coastal zones and other this thing. Like it, though it was the oil spill was at the high seas, but because of the seesaws and other thing, the all the oil was then came into the beaches on the thing, and lots of industries, like maybe a travel, maybe a fishery industry, or any sort of that, have faced lots of problem. And somehow again, that was the Suomoto cognizance of the High Court of Bombay, and that is only on the based on the report that was there into the, I think, Times of India's article. So judge, I just forgot the name of the judge. He just read the article in the newspaper, and then he filed a suo motu cognizance for that matter, and asked the state authority to give the report, the explanation why they have not done anything. And the state Maharashtra State Pollution Control Board also held liable for that matter, along with the company whose ship it was, whose carrier, I mean, the goods it was carrying. And I think Adani was also held liable for that matter, because I think that goods was eventually come to the Mundra port, I think. So please cross check with this case, but it was again where a judiciary was somewhere keeping this environmental rule of law concept at this thing, and making this state authority responsible for all that matter. They've also the court has also issued a directory for that matter, and have directed the State Pollution Control Board and the state authorities for that matter to solve the disputes entirely, whatever the oil spill is there. So they have to had all that with the coastal guard officers and other this thing. उनको कुछ ocean में वो sheets बिछाने पड़े थे, which will then soak all that oil from the water. Because so when such kind of incidents happens, it is not only affecting the tourism and other this thing, पूरी मरीन डाइवर्सिटी उस पर डिपेंड करती है एंड पोल्यूट होती है. Along with that, the birds are also getting adversely impacted, because many times we have seen in the National Geography or some good this thing, key bird comes and dip into the ocean water, and then they again fly. So oil is on the surface of the water, and when they took a dip into the water, the entire their wings gets oily, and then they find difficulty because of the weight of the oil. They could not fly, and they lost their lives. And so lots of thing was there into the case. So I recommend all of you, if you want, I'll share, Malvika, I'll share a link with you for that case, and I recommend each one of you to read this case. And one is MK Ranjit Singh case of 2024, where the court have taken this thing, that to fight against the adverse impact of the climate change is in a fundamental right enshrined under Article 21. So आप बोलते हो कि इसकी वजह से we as an indigenous people are suffering ये climate change ये वो. So now you can file a petition. Why now you can go ahead with this problems, considering not as your legal rights are getting violated, but as your fundamental rights are getting violated. So that was MK Ranjit Singh case, and I think those, I mean, that has established and have changed the entire segment into the different, have taken that segment to the different level. So I recommend that case also to all of you to read and find a wonderful insights of the case and court's rule on that. Okay, so that is that case. Then precautionary principle, all I think you must be knowing about the Vellore Citizens case, that is Welfare Forum 1 of 1996 versus Union of India, where the case was involving the massive water and soil destruction by the Tanris in the Tamil Nadu, and affecting the drinking water resources and all sort of that. So then court recognizing the polluters pay principle, that is triple P concept, and precautionary principle as an integral part of the environmental rule of law, and demands that preventive action, even without absolute scientific certainties, there needs to be taken into the consideration, and state was held liable for. Nowadays, because of the polluter pay principle and a precautionary principle, we have the rules of this environment, concept, and the mandate of environment clearance before any of the project that comes and that passes from the government authorities. Even it is any sort of bridge, tunnel, or the projects like this Kevadia Dam in Gujarat that Narmada Bachao Andolan case was very famous for. So this all are these example for that matter, and crucially, this Valor Citizen case have established that precautionary principle reverses the burden of proof. Now it is not, the industry must prove that its operation are environmentally, banging like the directions, like, so now we have the industries have to submit the to take the environment clearance certificate. They need to submit the environment impact assessment report, that what impact their project would have on the environment, the forcing of all the damages and other this thing with the scientific method and all sort of that. So that is, I think, wonderful just action or judicial activism that we had then in 1996 in India. And the judiciary then soon realized that issuing a single judgment after this Valor Citizen case, was not enough, because still we were struggling and other this thing, and then they had to involve the ensure compliances for that, and that had led to the development of administrative oversights and distributive justice for that matter. And then there was a case which is still ongoing, that is of T.N. Godavaran's case, which was like for the stopping this illegal forest destruction in Goodlaw, and but it was quickly then become a national mandate on forest governance, governing the conservation and the deforestation of the forest land and the utilization of this thing. And then court has adopted for that matter the doctrine of continuing mandamus, meaning the case has remained open for all entire this thing, and the court continues to issue the new directives for that matter, transforming itself from the one time adjudicator into the administrative supervisor for over 20 years, my dear friends. So 20 साल से या फिर उससे ज्यादा से this case is ongoing, and court has kept this case remained open for all the further problems that the area or that particular things will फेस। और उसके लिए जो एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सुपरवाइजर परमानेंट एक पूरी पोस्ट उसके लिए की गई थी, which would be then looking and supervising the entire task for that years. And now it's been, I think, 25 to 30 years for that matter, 26 or 27 years, and still it is ongoing. And so outcome of this thing was this quasi executive role that was led to a creation of the Central Empowered Committee, my dear friends, which act as a court's instrumental institutional arms for enforcement and financial mechanism like compensatory afforestation fund that needs to be created. And this has shows the judiciary's willingness, my dear friend, to surpass the doctrine of separation of power, which says that no influence of any other organs or no interference of any other of this thing. Here, a court is performing a quasi administrative role, where directing to have a fund, establishing one administrative post for this matter. So this is, I think, a mixture of both the, surpassing the doctrine of separation of power and establishing the environmental rule of law for that matter. So that is one of the important case for that matter. I repeat the case, it is T.N. Godavaran's versus Union of India of the year 1997. And in case if you need the link for this case, I'll be surely sharing, and would appreciate if you read the entire text of the judgment for that matter. So you'll understand the entire flow of how it have went and why these quote are, I mean, not only you'll be understanding the concept of environmental rule of law or environmental rule of law rather, but you'll be understanding the like where India do not follow the principle of separation of power in its rigid form, but we always follow and we always use this and into our legal system the separation of power with the doctrine of check and balance. Okay, and for this thing, I think one more case we can discuss is to make its decision enforceable and proportional. The Supreme Court also had to engage with highly technical and scientific data for that matter. And the case is of 2007, which says the case name is Research Foundation for Science, Technology and National Resource Policy versus Union of India of 2007. It says that in this hazardous this was the case was a hazardous waste case which was involving actors, and the judges relied on heavy on technical, I mean techno scientific data, citing the reusability of some materials to ground its ruling into the state of art mechanism, and which they defined as a key element of sustainable development, that 4 hours of reuse, recycle and other this thing. And by walking into the techno scientific register, the court ensured its mandate are based on the technical reality, lending the objective weight to its environmental protection orders. So this is one of the case where court have taken not only this legal aspect but also relied upon the scientific data, and has kept that as a mandate for all the officers for that matter to have a techno scientific register for the further their research and other this thing. So that is, I think, one of the wonderful step that Indian judiciary have taken. The environmental rule of law, I believe, is not just about cleaning up the pollution, but I believe it is about I mean, fundamentally about a social or economical equality too, as we say the principle, the first principle, that is the equality, that is equality before law. And for that, we can quote a case of Samantha versus state of Andhra Pradesh, where the case challenged the state government's grant of mining lease to non-tribal entities in scheduled tribal areas, which was violating the rights of the indigenous people. The Supreme Court in this case has affirmed the fundamental rights of this tribal community and the people, and held that the transfer of lands in a scheduled areas for commercial purpose was illegal, and it served as a powerful check and restraint to the state power. So again, the rule of law establishing and the concept of supremacy of law, that is the second principle of environmental rule of law. So that here we can understand with this case that you cannot transfer any of the lands of which is already declared, which in this scheduled of tribal areas for a commercial purpose to anyone. And the court then cancelled all illegal minings which was given on a lease, and mandates that any mining activity in scheduled areas could only be conducted by the state minerals development corporations, and or by the cooperative of the tribal purpose, with the cooperation of the tribal peoples, with the at least 20% of the profits dedicated to the social services like schools and hospitals for the tribal communities. And this is profoundly have linked the environmental rule of law to the constitutional protection of the marginalized community, my dear friends. And here we may say, still, as I've done my PhD in law, we still have, I mean, biodiversity law, still there was discussion that to consider coal as a biological resources or no. So still the cases are ongoing, still there is enough, it is a debatable question rather. But my dear friends, here we can understand the third principle of convention on biological diversity of 1992, that is access and benefit sharing. Okay, so which says that if you are accessing any of the biological resources, if you are accessing any of indigenous people's resources or any sort of that on which their livelihood is based upon, then you have to pay a certain amount of benefits that you have on, like for example, if you have 100 rupees of profit, some percentage of your profit needs to be shared to this local communities or the indigenous people, which is the entire third objective of convention on biological diversity. That means that excess, what you are accessing, the benefit sharing, what benefit you have earned through the excess of the biological resources, needs to be shared with this indigenous community. So this is one of the important case for that, understanding that concept also, that so court mandates that the cooperation or inclusion of these tribal communities need to be there, or the mining activities can be done by the state authorities, or whatever the amount they will be earning for that matter, so 20% of that profit needs to be shared with these people. Now that sharing could be in cash, or it could be in kind. You may provide them medical facilities, you may provide them educational facilities, basically again linking those concept of environmental rule of law, environmental economical social governance, along with the concept of ESR, that is environmental social responsibility, equally the concept of corporate social responsibility. तो जैसे आप लोगों ने CSR का concept समझा है, उसी तरह से थोड़ा सा understanding करके कि whatever damage the industries are causing to the environment, certain amount of profit needs to be shared for the environmental upgradation. Okay, so that is ESR concept, that is environmental corporate ECR, that is environmental corporate responsibility. So that is one of the concept, I think, which can be understood with this case. So I think moving to this thing, which the principle or all these case laws, what we have discussed, the absolute liability, precautionary principle, sustainable development, polluters pay principle, all have rest upon the foundation of environmental democracy, my dear friends. Remember the Rio's principle, 10th principle of the Rio summit, which says that access to information, that is citizen must be informed about the risk and the pollution data to the participants meaningfully. Okay, so that is access to information. The second principle for that matter is access to the participation. The citizen must have a say in a decision like environmental impact assessment, so their inclusion, their opinion for that matter. And the last is access to justice, on which the environmental rule of law is based upon. That is the most crucial pillar, I believe, and providing a judicial and administrative proceedings necessary for addressing and address and for the redressal and the enforcement of this task. Okay, for that matter, we have a National Green Tribunal, which was established in 2010 as a specialized body for a speedy trial of the environmental matters and effective and expeditious resolution of environmental disputes. Its composition for both judicial and expert members ensure a scientifically informed approach. And this entity has mandate is to enforce the compliance, award compensation, and mandate a restoration, acting as a crucial specialized arm of environment concept and other this thing. And I just want to share, I believe this West Bengal government, you just please go and cross check with this data. West Bengal government was held liable for not having a proper management of sewage waste and other this thing, and lots of people were suffering because of that. And the state government was asked to pay a compensation of 3,000 crores of rupees. So that is NGT that has given this mandate. So you can see the government activism and other this thing for that matter, that NGT is playing a crucial role. And despite India's strong, I think, general jurisprudence and most serious, current challenge all world is facing is a climate change, my dear friends. And Indian courts have historically have seen limited to these cases of directly challenging the government interaction, may be greenhouse gases emission or which is due to the lack of comprehensive umbrella of the climate litigation that legislation which is there. So, maybe Ridhima Pandey's appeal, which directly challenges the Indian government's insufficient action of the climate change, or which was because the government's this thing, like judicially to decide whether they will be enforcing the long term goals like Paris agreements that they have agreed upon, or when the legislative and executive branches will take an action, or this would be an ultimate test of the environmental rule of law. And I think still we are awaiting for the proper answer from the government. And so I think here somewhere, though we have lots good judicial intervention in this matter, but still we are struggling with all these things, and still into the pipeline for achieving those targets. Dear friends, we have successfully what we have, to understand the judicial intervention and other this thing. Um, but we, it's not enough. We must know and zoom out and ask a crucial question to ourselves, that even after lots of actions, lots of efforts, are we really winning globally? Answer, I think, is no, because the global data on the environmental rule of law reveals a shocking paradox for that matter. And I just want to share some critical new insights for that matter. And there was it is about putting this or paper fortress, like हम वो पेपर का ढेर बनाते ही जा रहे हैं with the different instruments and the different treaties and other this thing. And we have spent decades, I think 5 or 6 decades, for this drafting the laws and other this thing, maybe at the international forum, other this thing. International forum, or at the municipal this thing. But the global failure rate is higher than this thing, that despite all this monumental legal framework and achievement, the weak enforcement is identified as a global trend, as we discussed, for that matter. And environmental rule of law is designed to prevent a governance from the arbitrariness, as we have discussed. Yet, when there are so many laws and so little enforcement, we create a situation where the environmental decisions are still a discretionary, subjective, and unpredictable. You may take a case of Kamal Nath's this thing, or any sort of that which is there. And so, what we need is integrity. The environmental rule of law must integrate both efficient legal framework and capable effective institutional to uphold. So we need a strong authorities to uphold all this thing. And as we have discussed that it has increased 38 times with more laws and other this thing, still the crises are accelerating. What does that tell us about the political commitment and enforcements, for that matter? We still struggle with the proper answer. May it be environmental personhood is a concept, may it be the concept of upholding the rights of the river Ganga, or upholding the rights of glaciers as a part of the considering them as an legal, as an a legal personhood. And beyond human rights, this, when we are talking about environmental personhood and other this thing, so we all, our constitutional gives us the fundamental rights and other this thing, human rights it's out there. But there are the countries like Ecuador which has broke a new grounds for that matter, and have constitutionally have granted the granting a nature that is a punch mama, the rights to the exist, persist and regenerate its own vital cycle. So under article 70 of the of the Ecuador constitution, they have given a fundamental rights, not to the environmental itself. So I think this allows any person to bring a legal action for the enforcement, and for the in case of infringement of nature's right, and which is, I believe, is an ecocentric views. And this has radically shift the legal frame from the anthropocentrism or eco anthropocentric approach, that is the human centered approach, to the ecocentric approach, where keeping economic keeping environment, ecology into the center, and regardless of the human utility. Okay, so this is, I think, is one of the thing, the mandate of environmental rule of law. The 72%, the global transparency deficits is still there. Only 28%, that is out of 70, only 20 of these countries have reviewed and ranked in a good or a very good into the producing a regular comprehensive a state of the environment reports. So here the data is very not so at a good stage thing. Lots of global deficits that is there, which prevents a public and codes for monitoring the compliances and other things. So all sort of data is not giving us the good over 30 over 350 specialized courts and tribunals which already have been established in 50 countries, but still we are struggling with the environmental justice or access to justice for the matter, and ensuring the environmental rule of law for that matter. So in conclusion, we may say is that the environmental rule of law, I think, is a necessary connection between the ethical duties and effective governance, and it demands that we integrate the environmental needs with our core legal principle of accountability, transparency, and the justice. Basically, access to justice. And I believe this challenge is no longer quantity of our laws, but the challenge is a quality of implementation and integrity of our institutional this thing. And we must bridge this gap between our powerful constitutional authority and the difficult, often corruption, maybe a corrupt system, or the lacunas into the enforcement of such laws. So that's it from my end. If you have anything to ask me for any question or sort of that, if not on the topic, you can ask me a question relates to the environmental law and other this thing. I'll try my level best to answer at my best what I know.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, Shri had asked during the session again, he's asked basically, does the polluter's principle really work, as most industries cause pollution and they are very powerful?
So polluter pay principle, I think it is indeed accountable. I mean, it is indeed, working in a great this thing, and like for example, when we talk about, as I have given you an example of the Sabarmati reverse case where Gujarat High Court has taken this thing. So polluter pay principle, I'll just give you a one example where we also pay directly or indirectly for that matter. Many a time when we fly internationally or like that, we pay a carbon tax. If you ever notice your travel ticket, air ticket, you will come to know that you have pay a certain amount of this thing as in a carbon tax. Also, I'll give you an example. If you have ever visited Sri, the any sanctuaries or wildlife this thing or like that, or if you have gone to any reserve forest area or something like that, we all have paid the entry fee. Our entry fee is included of forest tax. This is a combination of precautionary principle and polluters pay principle, Shri, where it has been presumed that when we are entering into the nature, we would be lefting our carbon footprints on over there, and because through that we would be polluting our environment, we have to pay a compensation for that matter. You just open the entities this thing, you'll find n number of cases where under the polluters pays this thing, the government, the industries, the the local authorities, maybe a state pollution control board or a local this thing, have held liable to pay a compensation for the restoration of this thing. फिर वो रिवर का रेस्टोरेशन हो या फिर किसी डंप यार्ड का मैटर हो, और any sort of that. So it is indeed, in today's scenario, this principle is very much important. And if you talk about India's this thing, the judiciary has well interpreted this thing into the, and has kept the legal spirit on up this thing. And as far as the international scenario is concerned, for this polluter pays principle is concerned, I think in to 2021 somewhere, the United Nations have passed, General Assembly have passed a resolution for that thing, where polluters pay principle was I mean, the expansion of the polluters pay principle at international sphere. And what they have adopted is that if because of the action of the developed countries, see, it is always the scenario that underdeveloped countries suffers from the problems of the climate change and other this thing, but they are not actually the I mean, they are the victims, or sufferers for that matter. They have, their action were never like that, which have increased the climate risk or like that. So it is always the activities of the developed countries or developing countries which have impacted adversely on the environment, which has causes the climate change. But because of this developed and underdeveloped, I mean, developing state, the underdeveloping countries are suffering. So here the 2021's United Nations resolution was adopted, and it has kept the liabilities over the developed and developing country, that if your activities is found having an adverse impact of the on the underdeveloped country's environment, this developed country and developing country has to pay a certain amount of the compensation to this underdeveloped countries. And for that, United Nations General Assembly has also suggested the United Nations Environment Program authorities to have those funds, where those platforms where this developed and underdeveloped countries can submit their compensations, and through which the UNEP can create a fund which then would be can be utilized for the restoration of the environment of these underdeveloped countries, because these underdeveloped countries do not have financial resources और any sort of resources. ना उनके पास environment बिगाड़ने के लिए resources हैं, ना उनके पास environment सुधारने के लिए resources हैं. So this fund would be a great help to this underdeveloped countries for the restoration of their environment, my dear friend. And I think so here you can understand the implementation of this polluters pay principle, not only at the municipal forum but at the international forum too. So yeah, that's, if you have a further question, anyone would like to ask me anything, I'll try to answer you.
Ma'am, actually, in India, there are a lot of reforms as well as statutory laws made for environment also. But I think the biggest problem is our population. India is number one populated country, so people are least responsible and worried about the environment. Yeah, this is related to the pollution which we are facing in the air, water, as well as in the ozone layer also. Here the people are least worried about this population, so we are affecting this environmental problems also.
I think would like to ask is that the fundamental duties that is there on the citizen, they are lacking in performing their tasks. And because the pollution of India is, I mean, the population of India is so high that somehow, even though we have good laws and implementation procedures, we would be lacking because of not having a self discipline amongst the citizens of the country. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. And many a times we see the industries also play a massive role in polluting the water. If you see the Udupi case of Karnataka, Adani Group has been imposed 50 crore of fine penalty for this pollution of
Yeah.
water. So these are the some sort of rules or remedies to check this pollution.
I believe, Payal, your question itself having answer. That's what I believe. Because when we say that, we do have a good laws, answer is yes. When we say we have good authorities to implement the laws, answer is yes. We do have a good authorities for, implementation of those tasks. So हम कहाँ पीछे रह गए? So one, it is correct that I always say whenever I teach environmental law, in the class, I always say that You cannot achieve your goals for the environment protection unless and until individual take that as a responsibility. Because if I'm keeping the lights on of my room, if I'm adding my carbon footprints, I'm not counting my carbon footprints, whatever n number of this thing we would be having the action plans and other this thing, we completely cannot achieve the environmental protection for that what goal we have decided for ourselves. That is indeed correct. So we Malvika, I suggest that to have such awareness campaigns and the drives on this thing, that how a one person or the workshop, Malvika, you can conduct in case if your format
Yes, ma'am.
this sessions permits you to to have a workshop, and that like on like how a individual can work on reducing the कार्बन फुटप्रिंट्स. हम ऐसा क्या कर सकते हैं छोटा छोटा कि जिससे हम खुद की कार्बन फुटप्रिंट्स कम कर सकते हैं. ओके, सो अब recently we entire festive season have gone this thing, and in Gujarat you everyone of you knows that ki Navratri is always always a big festive in Gujarat, and people plays for 9 days. And last year तक हमारे यहाँ पे ऐसा होता था गुजरात में, अहमदाबाद में स्पेशली, कि everybody used to play a गरबा in the open grounds. भले ही फिर आप क्लब में जाओ और you go to any मतलब सोसाइटी में खेलो, या फिर you go for clubs or any sort of that, always it has been observed that कि गरबा always open ground में खेला जाता था. दिस वॉज ऑलवेज द थिंग. अभी ये 2 साल में पता नहीं कहाँ से ये कंसेप्ट नया लेके आए हैं, हैविंग एसी डॉम्स फॉर प्लेइंग गरबा. Okay, so last year to somehow because of some this thing I was not going for playing the garba, and this year somehow I got a chance, and I've gone to this AC dom wonderfully. What AC they were having, kitna bhi kood lo, naach lo, you are not feeling exhausted. Your makeup is intact, your hairs are intact. I think वो जो 24 टेम्परेचर बोला था एसी का, जो standardize है to keep that sustainable development concept intact, this is uncontrolled in Gujarat, and I really want to raise a concern for that, but somehow because of other task and other this thing, somehow I'm still have not taken any action, or have not raised this question amongst the authorities or like that. But this is a genuine concern. There is no need to have a AC dom for playing garba. What we are doing, we are just adding lots of pollution. Play garba in open ground where you need, and what state authorities are doing, what this CPCB is doing of Gujarat, why it is granting a permission of lots of AC doms. And this time because this concept is new, I think Ahmedabad में hardly 15-20% ऐसे domes थे. पर looking at the popularity and everybody, the rush that was there, मतलब दो 3-4 हजार के passes लोग एक एक दिन का ले रहे हैं, 40 हजार रुपए passes ले रहे हैं 10 दिन के, to go in the AC dome and playing the garba. वो 500 रुपए के पास जो open ground के, they don't want it, they are ready to spend a money like anything, and they would like to go there, including myself. I was also fascinated. I just wanted to see वो एसी डैम होता क्या है, कैसे खिलते हैं. तो मैं भी चली गई लोगों मतलब वो अट्रैक्ट होते होते. सो आई एम इंक्लूडिंग माई सेल्फ ऑल्सो, कि इतना कंसर्न होने के बाद भी, इतना पढ़ने के बाद भी मुझे वो फैसिनेशन हो गया कि मैं भी जाके एसी डोम में खेलूं. So imagine the situation. So it is not only about a self responsibility as an individual that I failed performing, but the state authorities also somewhere is, because you see 4-5 years will go nice. The entire culture of Gujarat Navratri would transform into the AC domes and other this thing. 6 साल के बाद everybody will then have a campaign, पर तब तक already हम लोग बहुत कुछ बिगाड़ चुके होंगे कि जिसको फिर रिवर्स करना पॉजिटिव मतलब पॉसिबल ही नहीं होगा. और वो इट वाज नॉट लाइक कि 24 के टेम्परेचर पे एसी चल रही थी. यू कैन नॉट इमेजिन द डक्ट दे वर हैविंग, क्योंकि हम लोग थोड़ा सा भी वो किचन में काम करके रूम में आते हैं ना, तो वो एसी इतनी जल्दी लगती नहीं, हमको लगता है गर्मी गर्मी गर्मी. इट टेक 15-20 मिनट्स टू गेट सेटल इन दैट 24 टेम्परेचर दिस थिंग. यहाँ पे तो हम भाग रहे हैं, कूद रहे हैं, नाच रहे हैं, पर हमको गर्मी ही नहीं लग रही. सो कितना टेम्परेचर उन्होंने रिड्यूस करके रखा होगा, और कितना मतलब every I think 5 feet पे there was a flow of AC. So I mean, a very worst scenario that I've seen. And genuinely, if anybody who is listening me from Gujarat, Ahmedabad, guys, if you have a time, please take a action and fight for it. Because 5 साल के बाद जब सब कैंपेन चलाएंगे, हम लोग बहुत लेट हो चुके होंगे. Please do it.
So, ma'am, in this case, a PIL can be filed?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you can even go to these NGTs also for the failure of government authorities, because how they can grant a sanction, या फिर ये पूरा sanction जरूरत ही नहीं है. सपोज मतलब मुझे बाकी सारी sanctions लेनी है, पुलिस परमिशन लेनी है, बाउंसर रखना है, फलाना रखना है, ढिमकाना रखना है, everything is sorted. But AC डोम का concept I just fail to understand. नवरात्रि में जरूरत ही नहीं है.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am,
So
after many deaths that happened during Navratri because people get attacks in the crowd.
I
So,
think ये गुजरात में बहुत नहीं है, बिकॉज कितने साल हो गए गरबा खेलते खेलते, और ऐसे रश में कोई ऐसे वो करके किसी की कोई मीन डेथ हुई है ऐसा मैंने नहीं सुना है. एवरीथिंग वाज गोइंग गुड. Everybody is playing. There is less nuisance in compare of other states and other this thing. गुजरात में कितनी भी देर तक मतलब आप गरबा वरबा खेलो कुछ ऐसा नहीं होता है. बट ये कंसर्न ऑफ हैविंग एसी डोम्स की जिसकी जरूरत नहीं थी. इट वाज नॉट लाइक दैट कि लोग ऐसे गर्मी में मर रहे हैं. वो तो मतलब इट वाज नेवर दैट सिनेरियो कि एसी डोम की जरूरत थी. बिना परमिशन के ये लोग लेके आ रहे हैं, या फिर हाउ दे आर टेकिंग इनटू दिस थिंग, ये स्टिल एक अनअंडरस्टैंड. मेरे को समझ ही नहीं आ रही पूरी कंसेप्ट.
yes, ma'am.
एनीथिंग एल्स?
Ma'am, she is asking how can the principle of intergenerational equity be legally enforceable when the future generations don't have a stand to litigate?
फ्यूचर जनरेशन डू नॉट हैव?
Future generations can't litigate now. Right.
So you are talking about the child in womb?
Yes.
No. Intergenerational, this equity principle, I think, is been misunderstood. What it says that whatever the actions we take, may it be any projects that you come up with, or जैसे मैंने बोला environment impact assessment report submit करनी होती है, ये सब तो उनके लिए ये mandate है under this principle कि what impact what you are showing कि this project will have impact on the environment, you also keep it in mind this principle, and also take a look at what the impact this project would be on the future generation. तो माने फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम ऐसा बोलते हैं कि हमको इस रिवर पे डैम बनाना या फिर ये करना और any sort of that. So understand this concept very easily. Every one of us knows that there is 33% reservation in the forest. सबको पता है that we have to keep 33% forest as in a reserved area जिस पे कुछ नहीं हो सकता. You cannot have any project, you cannot have any research, you can only, the forest officials can go in that area and can preserve the wildlife and other this thing. Apart from that, the reserve forests are not open to laymen or a local people, right? So this is what, this is the principle of intergenerational this thing. You are keeping those 33% of the forest for that future generation. अब वो 33% पे वो लोग अपना litigation, अपनी life को आगे बढ़ाएंगे. Am I keeping it clear, Shri? Okay, well done.
Ma'am, Ashwini is asking any reference material or any websites that have great information and knowledge on environment related matters.
See, environmental rule of law is thing like 4 or 5 international institutions are working upon, like UNEP, IUCN, UNICED, or something like that. So you can visit their websites. Also, you can you can read some of the good journals on environment, be Routledge, this thing. Or so if you want, I can share a link with you to read those, but they are not open access. So you need to buy a subscription for that thing. And best is to visit the government websites to understand and this thing.
Okay, ma'am. Can you make us understand the concept of carbon credit and how does it help in sustainability?
This would be a wonderful question, and this I think would be great. मुझे इसमें business करना है, this is wonderful to earn money. I being in a Marwadi family, मुझे ऐसा लगता है इसमें बहुत अच्छा कमा सकते हो. So how this work is, जैसे मैं sustainable farming करती हूँ, मेरे घर पे ही farm करती हूँ, ठीक है? So basic understanding, हाँ. So when I'm growing my own food, I mean this grow crops and other this thing, मैं carbon footprints को घटा रही हूँ. Okay, when I'm using solar panels at my rooftop, when I'm using all that natural renewable energies and others thing, so I'm having a less carbon footprints and I'm increasing my carbon credit. Okay, so जैसे मैंने सब्सटेंशियल फार्मिंग की तो मेरे को कार्बन कार्बन क्रेडिट मिला. ओके, अब ये क्रेडिट मैं बाद में बेच सकती हूँ टू द कॉर्पोरेट्स जो कोई ऐसी एक्टिविटी करते हैं जिससे एनवायरमेंट हार्म होता है. दिस अथॉरिटी वुड बी बाइंग दोस क्रेडिट फ्रॉम मी. एंड दिस इज अ वंडरफुल कंसेप्ट माय डियर फ्रेंड्स. कार्बन क्रेडिट बैंक जितनी जल्दी हो सके नीड्स टू बी इनटू द इम्प्लीमेंटेशन. ट्रस्ट मी, पीपल जो इंडिया के जुगाड़ू है ना, कितना अच्छा कमा सकते हैं इसके साथ. सो दैट इज द बेसिक कंसेप्ट ऑफ कार्बन क्रेडिट कि आप जितना भी कार्बन फुटप्रिंट घटाते हो आपको क्रेडिट मिलती है. दैट क्रेडिट देन यू कैन सेल टू द कॉर्पोरेट.
Okay, ma'am.
When farmers, new farmers, they want to buy a farmland, why is a farming certificate needed for new farmers?
Okay.
One cannot buy a farmland without a farmer certificate. So if a person doesn't have a farm and they want to get into this activity, why should they require a certificate for that?
Rashmi, your question is wonderful, but because I'm not knowing.
Ma'am, I think this falls in the realm of property law. The
No,
agricultural land, right? NA
yeah.
and that
Yes,
thing, right?
yes.
Okay.
So, but this. Thank you
No,
for
no,
raising.
it is a question. I know there may be no relevant law for this. I think we need to work
No,
on this.
this is a wonderful question, and this has given me a task for a homework कि मुझे इस पे सच में पढ़ना है. Why? Because when
Why?
other
That is
side you
what.
are, yes, other side you are saying the कि everybody should go for organic farming and sustainable farming for
Right,
themselves, and when they are
right.
having a land and would like to go for that, why they needs to get that
I have
this.
seen new farmers, they spend around 50,000 to lakh rupees just to get the certificate
I think
because they are new
Rashmi,
farmers.
आई थिंक कुछ ऐसा हो सकता है बिकॉज मेनी टाइम इट हैज हैपन बिकॉज आजकल में ऐसा होता है कि सारी एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड को एनए किया जाता है नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल
Right.
उससे. तो ये वाला कंसेप्ट थोड़ा नया भी है और जब नए फार्मर्स आते हैं तो वो उनका रजिस्ट्रेशन करवाने के लिए भी मैंडेट होगा.
I want to inform you, this is only for certain states because what these people do, other advocates and all, they take the person, they make a fake buyer certificate from another state for farmland, then they show that, okay, she's already a farmer, and then they, in that state, they get the certificate.
Shall I answer this
This
question?
is state problem.
Who would like to
Yeah,
answer?
please.
Payal.
I wanted to answer.
Good. I really would like to know about this.
Ma'am, actually nowadays the best way of earning money is to buy the land. This is the basic thing. So many of the people, what they do, they buy the land, agricultural land, and use it for the construction and for selling purpose or for housing purpose. So here farmer certificate is necessary made by government so that the land which is sold nowadays, it should be used for farming purpose only. It should not be used for construction things for earning money. This is also the reason behind this.
But I believe Payal, construction करने के लिए तो anyways you need any agricultural, I mean non-agricultural land certificate.
No, later on they do, like the person who asked this question, she also added some forged documents or these farmer certificates are made also by advocates. So these procedures goes on, which
That's
are
what I'm talking
non
about.
any land becomes any land later on after purchasing this agricultural land. So here the farming certificate. Now if we take the example of many film stars also, they buy various huge amount of agricultural lands and they show as if they are the farmers, but the fact is they are not the farmers. But this is the formula followed.
Ma'am, I think the root of this is due to taxation, tax evasion. So agricultural income is not taxable. So probably the roots for this lie in the taxation law.
हो सकता है because
हाँ.
this. Thank you, Rashmi, for asking this question and.
This was running in my mind for quite some time, almost 2 years, I think. So
No,
little bit
but
whatever research I could do, I only understood that much. that from other states they avail the certificate, and then the advocates they make the certificate.
See, Indian people, everyone, we are Jugaadu people. Somehow we find out the way.
Yeah,
You give us any law, and
right,
we have a way to
right, right.
surpass those barriers. So, but wonderful. So good. Rashmi, I just would appreciate that you conduct a research on that and go ahead. And for that, if you need any sort of help, or if I can be at any help, please let me know. Would love to be a part of those projects that you would be conducting for this matter.
So I think, ma'am, they can all connect with you on LinkedIn, right, and follow you because you write many articles, regularly author articles on various aspects of environmental law.
Sure.
So participants, please y'all can connect with ma'am on LinkedIn. In case y'all can't find her profile, ping us on WhatsApp. We'll share ma'am's LinkedIn link with y'all, and y'all can connect with ma'am. Ma'am, Rohan is asking for the case material. You'll share it with me, right? I'll forward it to them.
For sure. But you just need to give me a 1 or 2 days for that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Next week I'll remind you.
I'm having back to back lots of meetings. So
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, we'll conclude. Thank you so much, ma'am. Despite your hectic schedule, you spared time for this. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your experiences with us. It was a great learning experience. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Malvika. And every one of you who have joined and be a good listener for this session. Thank you so very much for having me on this platform. Thank you.